I still remember the exact moment my world began to crack open. It was a rainy Tuesday evening in late autumn, the kind of rain that taps softly against the windows like it's trying to tell you something important. I had just closed one of the biggest client deals of my career, the Harper account. Months of late nights, endless presentations, and sacrificed weekends had finally paid off. My boss had pulled me aside with a rare smile and said, "Emma, this is going to change everything for you." I walked into the house that evening carrying a small bouquet of white lilies for my dad, Mom's favorite flower, and a little stuffed bunny for my 6-year-old stepsister, Lily. My heart was still racing with that sweet mix of exhaustion and pride. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, building something meaningful, proving to myself that the dreams I'd held on to after losing Mom weren't silly or selfish. But the second I stepped through the front door, shaking raindrops from my coat, the warmth I expected wasn't there. The air felt thick, almost heavy with unspoken words. My stepmother, Vanessa, stood in the kitchen doorway with her arms folded tightly across her chest. Her perfectly styled blonde hair caught the light from the overhead lamp, but her expression was anything but warm. Little Lily clung to her leg, peeking up at me with those wide, trusting eyes that always melted my heart. My dad sat at the dining table, staring down into his mug of coffee like it held all the answers he didn't want to give. "You're home late again," Vanessa said. Her voice was soft, almost sweet, but I could hear the edge hiding underneath, like a blade wrapped in velvet. I forced a smile and set the flowers on the counter. "Yeah, the meeting ran longer than expected. But guess what? I landed the Harper account. It's huge. They loved the campaign idea. My boss said it could lead to a promotion by spring." I waited for the congratulations, for the proud hug from Dad, for Lily to clap her little hands and ask me to tell her all about the big meeting. Instead, Vanessa let out a quiet sigh and glanced at my father before turning back to me. "That's nice, Emma, but we need to talk about something more important than work." My stomach tightened just a little. I told myself it was nothing. Families have these conversations, right? Especially blended ones. I hung up my coat and tried to keep my tone light. "Sure, what's going on?" Vanessa guided Lily to the living room with a gentle push and a promise of cartoons, then came back and sat across from me at the table. Dad still hadn't looked up. "We've been thinking a lot lately," she began, choosing her words carefully. "About family, about what Lily really needs. She's growing so fast, and with my wellness coaching business taking off and your father's workload increasing, we believe it's time for you to step up in a real way." I blinked, not quite understanding yet. "Step up how?" She reached over and placed her hand on mine, a gesture that once felt comforting but now sent a small warning through me. "As her big sister, full-time, we need you here, Emma, to be her nanny, to give her the stability a child her age deserves. You can pause that stressful office job for a while. We'll cover your basic needs. It's not like you need all that pressure anyway." The words hung in the air between us. Pause my career, be her full-time nanny. I looked at my dad, waiting for him to say something, anything that would show how much my job meant to me. He finally lifted his eyes and gave a small nod. "Vanessa's right, sweetheart. Family comes first." That was the first real crack. But to understand why that moment hurt so deeply, I need to take you back to the beginning, to the girl I was before any of this started. My name is Emma. I'm 27 now, but the story really begins when I was 14. That was the year I lost my mom. She was everything to me. Kind, creative, the one who would stay up late helping me with school projects or listening to me ramble about my silly dreams of working in a big creative agency someday. She had this soft laugh that could fill any room, and she always smelled of vanilla and fresh coffee. When the doctors told us the cancer had spread too far, everything in my world went silent. Dad and I were devastated. For 2 years after she passed, our house felt like a museum of memories. We kept her favorite mug on the counter. Her garden outside stayed exactly as she left it, even when the weeds took over. I would come home from school and sit in her closet sometimes, just breathing in the faint scent of her perfume that still lingered on her clothes. Dad tried. He really did. He went back to work at his small accounting firm, but the light in his eyes had dimmed. We ate quiet dinners. We watched old movies she loved. We survived, but we didn't really live. Then, 4 years ago, he met Vanessa. She came into our lives like a fresh breeze. She was confident, put together, with a warm smile that seemed to promise new beginnings. She had Lily, a bubbly 3-year-old at the time, from a previous relationship that hadn't worked out. The first time I met them, Lily ran straight to me with a drawing she had made of a big sister with pretty hair. I laughed and hugged her, and for the first time in years, our house echoed with the sound of a child's giggles. Vanessa was attentive. She helped Dad redecorate the living room, nothing too drastic, just enough to make it feel less like a shrine and more like a home again. She cooked meals that brought us all to the table. She listened when I talked about my college plans and my dream of working in marketing, creating campaigns that told real stories. "I admire your drive, Emma," she told me once while we were folding laundry together. "Not many young women your age are so focused. Your mom would be proud." Those words meant everything to me back then. When Dad proposed, I was happy for him. The wedding was small and intimate, just close friends and family. Lily was the flower girl, scattering petals with such serious concentration that everyone smiled. I stood by Dad as his best person, wearing a soft lavender dress Mom would have loved. As they said their vows, I felt a cautious hope bloom in my chest. Maybe we could be a real family again. Maybe the emptiness would finally start to fill. The first couple of years after the wedding were good. Not perfect, but good. I graduated college with a degree in marketing and landed my first real job at a mid-sized agency. The hours were long, the pay wasn't great at first, but I loved it. I loved brainstorming ideas late into the night, presenting concepts to clients, seeing my work come to life on billboards and social campaigns. It made me feel close to Mom somehow. She had always encouraged my creativity. At home, I helped where I could. I picked Lily up from preschool when Vanessa had appointments. I played tea parties with her on weekends, letting her paint my nails bright pink while she told me stories about her imaginary unicorn friends. I even started teaching her simple words and numbers, watching her eyes light up when she got something right. "You're so good with her," Vanessa would say, smiling. "She adores you." I adored her too. Lily became the little sister I never knew I needed. Her laughter healed parts of me I didn't realize were still broken. Some evenings, after a tough day at work, I would come home and she would run into my arms shouting, "Emma's home!" and everything felt lighter. But slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice at first, the requests began to change. It started small. "Emma, would you mind watching Lily for an hour while I run to the store?" "Sure, no problem." Then, "Emma, Lily has dance class on Thursday. My client meeting got rescheduled. Can you take her?" I rearranged my schedule. "Of course." Then the comments started slipping into dinner. "Working mothers miss so much," Vanessa said one night, serving pasta. "I read this article about how children need consistent care from family, not strangers." Dad nodded along. "Makes sense." I stayed quiet, twirling my fork. I told myself it was just conversation, but inside, a tiny voice whispered, "Is she talking about me?" I hung up my coat and tried to keep my tone light. "Sure, what's going on?" The days after that rainy Tuesday felt heavier than the rain itself. I tried to act normal. I went to work, smiled at my colleagues, and poured myself into the Harper campaign like it was my lifeline. But every evening when I pulled into the driveway, my stomach twisted with dread. The house that once felt like a safe haven now carried an invisible weight. Vanessa didn't bring up the nanny idea again immediately. Instead, she used softer tactics, the kind that made me doubt myself more than any direct argument could. One evening, I came home to find the table set beautifully. Lily had drawn a colorful picture of the four of us holding hands under a big rainbow. Vanessa placed it in front of my plate. "Look what Lily made for you," she said warmly. She kept saying, "Emma needs to see our family is happy." Lily climbed into my lap, her small arms wrapping around my neck. "Big sister, please don't be busy all the time. I miss playing with you." My heart squeezed. I hugged her tightly, breathing in the sweet smell of her shampoo. "I miss playing with you too, sweetheart." Dad watched us with a gentle smile. "See, Emma, this is what matters." I wanted to believe him. Part of me still desperately wanted this family to work. But another part, the part that had fought through grief and built a career from scratch, felt like it was slowly being erased. The requests kept coming, each one a little bigger than the last. "Ebba, can you take Lily to her dentist appointment tomorrow? My client canceled, but I have a wellness retreat I can't miss." "Emma, Lily's school play is next week. We think you should be the one helping her rehearse every evening." "Emma, just this once, can you call in sick and stay home with her? She has a fever, and I really need to finish my online course." I said yes more times than I should have. I rearranged meetings, worked late into the night to catch up, and told myself I was being a good sister. But inside, exhaustion and resentment began to mix into something painful. Until everything changed on a quiet Thursday afternoon. I had managed to leave work early for once. My boss had given me a glowing review on the Harper project and hinted at a possible raise. I was excited to share the news. Maybe, I thought, if they saw how well I was doing, they would understand why my career mattered so much. I walked into the house and heard Vanessa's voice coming from the living room. She was on the phone, speaking in that light, breezy tone she used with her coaching clients. "Honestly, she's becoming impossible. I told her clearly, we need her to step up as Lily's full-time nanny, but she's so wrapped up in her little marketing job. It's selfish, really. After everything we've done for her after her mother passed, she owes this family more than chasing some office dream." My feet froze in the hallway. The words hit me like ice water. She continued, unaware I was listening. "If she refuses again, we may have to take stronger steps, maybe talk to her boss ourselves, or even involve the authorities if she makes the home environment unstable. A child's welfare comes first, after all." I stood there, heart hammering so loudly I was sure she could hear it. Stronger steps? Authorities? My own stepmother was talking about me like I was a problem to be handled. When she hung up, I stepped into the room. My voice came out quieter than I expected. "Vanessa, I heard everything." She turned, and for a split second her face showed surprise. Then the mask slipped back into place, calm, concerned, loving. "Emma, sweetheart, you misunderstood. I was just venting to a friend. You know how stressed I've been." "I didn't misunderstand," I said, my hands trembling. "You said I owe this family. You talked about involving the authorities. What does that even mean?" Dad walked in from the kitchen at that moment. He looked between us, his expression tired. "What's going on?" Vanessa immediately softened her voice. "Your daughter is accusing me of terrible things again. I was only expressing worry about Lily's stability." Dad sighed and turned to me. "Emma, we've talked about this. Family comes first. Your mother would want you to be here for your sister." There it was again, Mom's name used like a weapon. It shattered something deep inside me. "I loved Mom," I whispered, tears burning my eyes. "She taught me to follow my dreams, not give them up. Why are you using her memory against me?" The conversation spiraled. Voices rose, then fell into painful silence. Lily peeked from the stairs, her eyes wide and scared. Seeing her that way broke me even more. That night, I locked myself in my room and cried until my chest hurt. I felt confused, betrayed, and so incredibly alone. The family I had tried to rebuild was turning into something I barely recognized. The following weeks became a slow, emotional unraveling. Vanessa stopped asking nicely. The comments turned sharper when Dad wasn't around. "You're being incredibly selfish. Lily cries for you every night. Do you even care?" When I tried to set boundaries, she would sigh dramatically. "After all we've welcomed you into our lives, this is how you repay us?" Dad grew quieter. He avoided eye contact during dinners. Sometimes he would pat my shoulder and say, "Just think about it, honey," before disappearing into his study. I started documenting things in a private notebook. Dates, conversations, the times I had to miss work or important meetings. I didn't know why I was doing it at the time. It just felt necessary, like I was trying to hold on to my own reality while everything around me shifted. Then came the biggest twist I never saw coming. One weekend, while searching for an old photo album in Dad's study, I accidentally opened the wrong drawer. Inside were bank statements and a folder labeled Estate Matters. My heart nearly stopped when I saw Mom's name. There were documents I had never known about, a small trust fund Mom had set up for me before she passed. It wasn't huge, but it was protected until I turned 30. Dad had never mentioned it once, not during college, not when I struggled with bills, not even after he remarried. Worse, there were notes in Vanessa's handwriting attached to some pages, calculations, suggestions on how to reallocate family resources once I was more settled at home. They weren't just asking me to be a nanny, they wanted me dependent, controlled, stuck. I sat on the floor of the study, papers shaking in my hands, feeling completely exposed. The people I had trusted most had been planning behind my back. My career wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a threat to their vision of the perfect family where I played the supporting role. I never thought I'd feel so broken in the house I grew up in. The pressure reached its peak 2 weeks later. I had an important out-of-town client meeting scheduled, the one that could secure a major promotion and finally give me the financial independence I needed. The night before, Vanessa and Dad sat me down at the kitchen table like an intervention. "Emma, we've decided. You're not going to that meeting. Lily has a doctor's appointment and her school event. You need to be here. We've already called your boss and explained you're taking family leave for personal reasons." I stared at them in disbelief. "You called my boss without telling me?" Dad looked uncomfortable but didn't deny it. "It's for the best, sweetheart." Something inside me finally snapped. "No," I said firmly, my voice steadier than I felt. "I am not sacrificing my career. I love Lily, but I will not quit my job or cancel this meeting to become her full-time nanny. We can find real solutions, a proper nanny, after-school care, but I won't disappear so you can be more comfortable." Vanessa's expression hardened. The warm mask completely fell away. "Are you choosing yourself over this family?" she said, her voice rising. "Fine. If you won't help willingly, we'll make sure you have no choice." The next morning, as I was packing my bag for the meeting, 2 police officers knocked on our door. Vanessa had called them. She stood there with tears in her eyes, telling the officers that I was being hostile, unstable, and refusing to provide care for a minor in the household. She claimed I was neglecting Lily and creating an unsafe environment. Dad stood silently beside her, not correcting a single word. I stood frozen in the hallway, my promotion folder still in my hand, feeling my entire world shatter around me. The officers asked questions. Lily cried in the background, confused and scared. I tried to explain calmly, but my voice shook. In that moment, the betrayal cut deeper than anything I had ever felt. I realized the person I had trusted most, my own father, had quietly supported this plan all along. He had chosen silence. He had chosen their version of family over me. I never thought I'd see the day I would have to defend my right to exist as myself inside my own home. The pain was overwhelming. Confusion, anger, helplessness, they all crashed over me like waves. For several long minutes, I felt completely broken. But as the officers listened and began to realize it was a domestic matter with no clear evidence of danger, something else stirred beneath the heartbreak. A quiet fire. A small, determined voice inside me whispered, "You will not shrink. You will not disappear." I realized I had a choice. I could keep trying to please them and lose myself completely, or I could finally stand up and fight for the life I had worked so hard to build. In that painful, clarifying moment, everything changed. The betrayal had destroyed the family I thought I had, but it also awakened a strength I didn't know I possessed. And that strength was about to change everything. In that moment, standing in the hallway with 2 police officers at our door, something inside me finally clicked into place. I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of them. I simply took a slow, deep breath and felt the quiet fire that had been building turn into steady resolve. "Officers," I said calmly, my voice clearer than I expected, "I'm happy to answer any questions, but this is a misunderstanding. I live here, I contribute to this household, and I have never neglected my stepsister." Vanessa immediately stepped forward, tears already forming in her eyes, the same tears she used so effectively with Dad. "She's been hostile for weeks. She refuses to help with Lily and threatens to leave. A child's safety should come first." Dad stood beside her, silent, eyes fixed on the floor. His silence hurt more than any words could have. The older officer looked between us, sensing the tension. "Ma'am, can we speak with you privately for a moment?" I nodded and led them into the living room while Vanessa and Dad waited in the hallway. I kept my hands steady even though my heart was racing. I showed them my work bag with the client meeting notes, my ID, and quietly explained the situation without exaggeration. "I love my stepsister," I told them honestly, "but my stepmother has been pressuring me to quit my job and become her full-time nanny. When I refused and tried to attend an important work meeting today, this happened. I have messages and notes if you need them." The officers listened carefully. They asked a few more questions, spoke briefly with Lily, who was too confused to say much, and then stepped outside to talk among themselves. When they returned, the older officer addressed all of us. "This appears to be a family dispute. There's no evidence of neglect or immediate danger to the child. We're not taking any further action today, but I suggest you all seek mediation or counseling to resolve this peacefully." Vanessa's face flushed with frustration, but she forced a polite nod. As the officers left, the house fell into a heavy silence. That was the climax of the storm, the moment everything I had feared came true. Yet, I didn't fall apart. Instead, I looked at Vanessa and Dad and said the words that had been building inside me for months. "I'm moving out. Today." Vanessa opened her mouth to protest, but I continued, my voice steady. "I won't live where I'm seen as unpaid help instead of family. I love Lily, and I will still be in her life, but on my terms, not as her full-time nanny." Dad finally spoke, his voice rough. "Emma, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do," I replied softly, "because if I stay, I'll lose the person Mom raised me to be." I packed my essentials in 2 suitcases while they watched. Lily clung to my leg, crying, "Don't go, Emma, please." I knelt down and hugged her tightly, tears finally slipping down my cheeks. "I'm not leaving you, sweetheart. I promise I'll still see you. We can have special days together, just you and me. But I need to take care of myself, too." That hug broke my heart, but it also strengthened my resolve. I stayed with my colleague Sarah for the first 2 weeks.
She welcomed me without questions, letting me cry on her couch and reminding me I wasn't alone. Meanwhile, I reached out to my mother's old friend, Margaret, a respected family lawyer who had helped settle Mom's estate years ago. Margaret listened to the entire story without interruption. When I mentioned the hidden trust fund documents I had found, her tone sharpened. Emma, this changes things. Your mother set that up to protect you. We can use it. What followed was not dramatic shouting or public humiliation. It was quiet, precise justice, the kind that protected my future without destroying anyone else. Margaret helped me document everything. Screenshots of messages, recordings of conversations I had started keeping months earlier when the pressure first felt wrong, bank records showing how much I had already contributed to the household, and the notes from Dad's study about the trust fund. We sent a formal letter to Dad and Vanessa outlining the emotional manipulation, the false police report, and the attempts to sabotage my career. The letter was professional, not aggressive. It simply stated facts and requested clear boundaries moving forward. The confrontation happened 2 weeks later in Margaret's office. I sat across from Dad and Vanessa, my lawyer beside me. I wore the same blazer I had planned to wear to that important client meeting, a small symbol of the life I refused to give up. Vanessa looked smaller than usual, her usual confidence cracked. Dad kept rubbing his hands nervously. Margaret spoke first, laying out the evidence calmly. When she mentioned the false report to the police and the hidden trust fund, Dad's face paled. "I never meant it to go this far," he said quietly, his voice breaking. "Vanessa, we thought it was best for Lily." I looked at him, the man who had once carried me on his shoulders, who had grieved Mom with me, and felt a deep sadness rather than anger. "I know you thought you were protecting the family," I said gently, "but you asked me to disappear so your new life could be easier. That's not protection, that's erasure." Vanessa tried to defend herself at first, but the evidence was clear. Her voice grew quieter until she finally stopped talking. I didn't raise my voice once. I simply said what I needed to say. "I loved both of you. I tried so hard to make this family work after losing Mom. But love should not require me to shrink myself until I disappear. From now on, I choose me. I will still be Lily's big sister. I'll visit, I'll call, I'll celebrate her birthdays, but I need to take care of myself, too." There were tears. There were long silences. Vanessa apologized, a stiff, reluctant apology that didn't fully feel sincere, but it was something. Dad reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry, Emma. I failed you." That apology didn't fix everything, but it gave me a small piece of closure. The real revenge wasn't in making them suffer. It was in the weeks and months that followed. I got the promotion. My boss, who had been incredibly supportive after learning the truth, gave me a new title and a salary increase that finally allowed me to rent my own beautiful apartment, a sunny one-bedroom with a small balcony where I could drink coffee and plan campaigns in peace. I set healthy boundaries with Lily. Every other weekend, I picked her up for big sister days. We went to the park, baked cookies, watched movies, and talked about her dreams. She slowly stopped asking why I didn't live at home anymore. Instead, she started telling me about her new after-school nanny, a kind, older woman who made her feel safe and loved. Vanessa kept her distance. Her wellness business continued, but the perfect blended family image she had tried so hard to maintain had cracks that everyone in our small circle quietly noticed. She never called the police again. Dad reached out more often as time passed. Sometimes we met for coffee. The conversations were careful at first, but slowly we began rebuilding a different kind of relationship, one based on honesty rather than guilt. As the months turned into a year, I found peace in the most unexpected way. I started mentoring young women at my company, girls fresh out of college who felt pressured to choose between career and family expectations. I shared pieces of my story, always ending with the same message: your dreams are not selfish, they are part of who you are. One evening, sitting on my balcony watching the sunset, I thought about everything that had happened: the pain, the betrayal, the police at the door, the tearful goodbye with Lily. I no longer felt shattered. Instead, I felt whole, in a new, stronger way. I finally understood. Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't loud, cruel, or destructive. It's refusing to let anyone steal your light. It's waking up every single day and choosing yourself, even when the people who were supposed to love you tried to make you smaller. It's healing quietly, thriving openly, and becoming the woman your younger self needed, the one who refused to disappear. If you've ever been asked to sacrifice your dreams for someone else's comfort, whether it's family, a partner, or anyone who claims to love you, please hear this. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to choose your future. You are allowed to protect your peace. And sometimes that quiet, brave choice becomes the most powerful form of justice there is. My story didn't end with perfect reconciliation or dramatic revenge. It ended with me standing tall in my own life, carrying the lessons from the heartbreak and lighting the way for others who might be walking the same painful road. Thank you for listening to my journey. If this story touched something in your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear they're not alone. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had to choose yourself over family expectations? What gave you the strength to do it? Remember, your light is yours to protect. Never let anyone dim it. Until next time, keep shining.